What's going on, everybody? This is Chris Martinez from Dynamic Duo Training.
And this is Eric Martinez.
Alright, today we have a new educational video for you guys, okay? So what we're going to be talking about is metabolic positioning to enhance fat loss, okay? This is a subject that we think is really important, and it's something that we actually advocate for our clients to actually learn, and we actually try to educate them as best as possible on this because we think it's really important for you to understand metabolically what's going on, you know, when you're in that fat loss state, you know, physiologically, you know, when you consume food, what energy stores are being used, how your metabolism is working. So it's a lot of good stuff for everybody to learn and actually apply when they're actually dieting or in a fat loss stage, okay? So metabolic positioning, we didn't come up with this term. Dr. Joe Klemczewski actually coined this term, and he has an excellent video on this, and we're going to actually link it in the bottom of this, okay? Because he explains it in a lot more depth, and to tell you the truth, he's probably a lot better than us on explaining this, okay?
He's the man.
We'll give Joe that, okay? So yeah, we'll link that for you guys, okay? So we just want to make sure that the credit goes to Joe for this, okay? But we do want to redo this video, you know, for our clients, for our viewers, and to educate you guys a little bit more, okay? So I'll let Eric lead it off.
Yeah, and I just want to touch upon what Chris said. It's really important to know what's going on physiologically with your body, and you know, through a lot of our clients' experience as well as a lot of people drive themselves nuts with the scale. So I mean, just when you understand metabolic positioning, you get a better grasp and a better relationship with that scale. As bad as it sounds, but I mean it's very powerful. Okay, so to start off, we're going to talk about feed-fast cycle. Okay, and what I exactly mean about a feed-fast cycle is our bodies are constantly storing fat, and we're always burning fat. Okay, simultaneously throughout the day. Every time we eat a meal, we're going to store some body fat, okay? Every time, you know, we have that fast gap, like until the next meal, say 4 to 5 hours, you know, we're going to burn a little bit of body fat, especially too with, you know, enhanced activity and exercise and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's another reason too, when people, you know, are constantly snacking, they're not giving their body that time to fast through the next meal. And especially too, you know, with this, in the context of this actual title, which is fat loss, I mean, if your main goal is to, you know, induce fat loss, you know, you're always going to want to be burning more fat than you're obviously storing.
Exactly. Okay, so next thing we're going to talk about is your body's energy stores and metabolism, okay? So with energy stores, okay, you have two primary fuel sources that your body wants to use, okay? That's carbohydrates and that's fats, okay? Your body is always going to want to primarily use carbohydrates first, okay? There's no way around it. That's just the way the body works, the way your metabolism works, okay? It's always going to try to use carbohydrates first over fats, okay? But obviously the goal is to use fats first as our fuel, right? So that we can, you know, tap into fat loss, okay? So with energy stores, okay, you have carbohydrate metabolism and fat metabolism, as I was talking about a little bit earlier, okay? When you eat a meal, so what basically happens is, say you eat a carbohydrate meal, you know, a pasta meal or something like that, okay? So, you know, digestion first starts in the mouth, it goes into the stomach, you know, gets broken down in the small intestine, okay? And from there, your body is going to either store it, you know, into, you know, stored glycogen or muscle glycogen, okay? So once that's full, that's, you know, glycogen levels are topped out, okay? So once that's full, what's going to happen is, depending on, you know, what kind of meal it was, if it was a mixed meal with carbs or not, if it was just, you know, a carbohydrate by itself, if it was too much for your body to metabolize, you know, it may, you know, induce insulin, okay, it may do that. If not, what it's going to do is, what we want it to do is we're going to want it to use, you know, actually burn through glucose first, then glycogen, and then, you know, be used as fats for fuel, okay? But what a lot of people don't understand is they overeat so much sometimes at one sitting. And what happens is glycogen gets topped out, you know, in the muscle and the liver. And what happens then is, you know, there's nowhere else to store that extra glucose, so it gets stored into, you know, your fat cells, okay? So this is the first section where we just want to talk about the feed-fast cycle, energy stores, and just a little bit touching upon, you know, carbohydrate and fat metabolism. Okay?
All right, guys. So let's get into the actual 3 levels of metabolic positioning itself. So level 1, okay, glucose. So, when you're going to consume a meal, and particularly carbohydrates, the first thing it's going to your body's going to break it down to is glucose, okay? And you're also going to get, your blood sugar levels are going to rise as well, okay? So, it's going to lead you into level 2, but first off, the question is, are you going to utilize that glucose, or are you going to let it store as, glycogen?
Okay, so level 2, right? The second level what your body goes into is stored glycogen, okay? And that's from glucose, right? So if you eat a meal, what's going to happen is that glucose is going to be either stored into your liver or into your muscles, and it's going to be converted into stored glycogen, okay? And so what that leads into is level 3, stored body fat, okay? Now, what we were talking about earlier about the energy stores, right? How our body is going to use, store carbs first, okay, after a meal, no matter what, okay? So that's what we're talking about with these levels, okay? We want it to get to stored body fat, but it has to work through glucose, through stored glycogen, and then through stored body fat, okay? So that's what the whole levels are of metabolic positioning, okay? 3 stages, as you can see.
And not only that, you always want to be in that level 3 of metabolic positioning, okay? Because, if you're always stuck in level 2 and your body's always fighting through that stored glycogen, for an example, if you just consume a large meal that your body just cannot metabolize all those nutrients in one sitting, it's like you're always just going to be going through that cycle of just, little minor setbacks, okay? When you can be just, going straight to level 3 and utilizing that stored body fat as energy.
Yeah, and that's one of the physiological things that we try to advocate with clients, because the scale will actually fluctuate or something like that, and then we'll check and see what it was, and maybe they overate on carbs by 50 grams or something like that, okay? So yeah, the scale is going to jump up. Obviously, they're going to hold more glucose and stored glycogen, right? And their body is going to take about 2 to 3 days to work through that and get back to using fats as fuel, okay? And that's typically another thing with metabolic positioning, okay? So it takes usually about 2 to 3 days for your body to work through glucose, stored glycogen, and to get back to your body using fats as fuel, okay? Now 2 to 3 days, that's just kind of like a general rule or number, but it just depends, right? So if you have a huge meal, we're talking like just an all-out binge meal, okay? You could probably spend 5 or 6 days or pretty much the whole week, right?
Right. Even if you're coming off a high-carb day as well.
I mean, if you overdo it, completely just overdo it, your body will take, up to 5, 6, 7 days to work through that glucose and stored glycogen and get back to using body fat, and you're probably most likely going to store fat in that process, okay? So that's another thing, okay? Just really eat the amount of carbs that you really need and that you're going to actually utilize and your body's going to actually metabolize, so that you don't sit there and waste 5 to 6 days, using glucose and stored glycogen instead of using your body fat to burn through fat and induce fat loss, okay? So we'll talk about the third step after this. All right, now we're going to talk about a real world example, okay? Something that you commonly see with a client or yourself, okay? So we have subject A right here, and then you have subject B, okay? Subject A, his macros right here, protein 200, carbs 300, fats 50, okay? This side is his normal day macros, okay? So he follows that for 6 days straight, okay? On this side, he has a high carb day, okay? His protein's constant, his fats are constant, but he has an increase of 150 carbohydrates that day, right? So if this subject right here was to do 6 days of normal macros right there on the left side, right? Obviously, his body is going to be utilizing lipolysis, right? Which is basically, you're using fats as your energy source right there. Your body's tapping into fat usage and it's, inducing fat loss, okay? Now, say he has his high carb day that one day, right? So his weight goes up maybe like 1 or 2 pounds, okay? So since it's a very moderate carb day and it's controlled, right? He's only going to need about 2 to 3 days for metabolic positioning, right? For his body to burn through glucose, glycogen, and get back to using stored body fat, okay? Now, on the flip side right here, okay? You have this subject right here that has protein at 150, carbs at 200, fats at 40. Now, his high carb day, right? He goes off and he keeps protein constant at 150, but he goes from 200 carbs to 600 carbs, okay? And he goes from 40 grams of fat to 80 grams of fat, okay? So that's a huge, caloric surplus on that day. So what happens to that guy or that person? They gain about, 4 or 5 pounds, right? And what happens is they take 5 to 6 days instead of 2 to 3 days for metabolic positioning, right? So they're in 5 to 6 days working through glucose and stored glycogen, okay? When they could have been, using fats as fuel, still losing fat, okay?
And getting to their fat loss goal that much
Exactly.
faster than just setting themselves back. So then another thing I want to talk about is our genetics. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have all heard, and a lot of people just really think that genetics don't play a big role in our metabolism, but the reality is, our genetics are our genetics. It is what it is. Okay, and that they're huge. They control everything when it comes to our metabolism. So some people might be able to consume 3,000, 4,000 calories when the other person just might not be able to do that. They can only consume 2,000 calories. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's not fair. Maybe I can build myself up to it. Well, you can try that, but a lot of things in life aren't fair. Okay, so if you're going to play with that kind of fire, and just sit there and just try to take in more calories than your body can handle, then just hold yourself accountable with it. And another kind of example I want to use too is just something we really enjoy is eating sushi. Okay, so when we do eat sushi, maybe 2 rolls, 2.5 rolls, maybe 3 when this guy gets a little just selfish and just wants to binge a little bit, and the next day our weight will spike up literally like 5 pounds. And we don't freak out though, because we know it's just part of the metabolic positioning that our body's just stored with extra glycogen, extra water, extra sodium from all the sushi. So it's like, it's not a big deal, but we understand that our body's going to take time, like 3 to 4 days, to work through all that stored glycogen to get back into our fat storage to tap into and utilize for energy.
And another thing too, adding on to that, that next 2 or 3 days after that sushi meal, we'll feel like watery, fluffy,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And we'll look like filmy, okay? But as our body's working through these stages of metabolic positioning, as the week goes on and we start using fats as fuel, we start getting tighter and harder and actually feeling like, we're a lot tighter and not fat, okay? For lack of better words, okay? So this was basically, an educational video that we felt was super important for clients and for our viewers and for everybody to understand the physiological, aspects of your metabolism and metabolic positioning, the 3 stages. Because what we see happen is when people don't understand this and their weight, spikes up, or they're not making the progress they want, they freak out and they end up quitting, okay? Without realizing that if you just take some time to realize what your physiology is doing with your body and your metabolism, you'll have a better grasp and understand, and you'll catch these trends, and you'll make progress. You'll make progress,
And you'll most likely not want to just beat the hell out of that scale every morning. Okay,
Exactly.
Because we all need to understand that our weight trends, they're not going to be linear. Okay, it's more of a stair step type of thing. It's always going to go up. It's always going to go down. Like we said, it's a feed fast cycle, and that's just how it is. Okay.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions, please leave some comments in the comment box. Shoot us an email at dynamicduotraining@gmail.com. Visit us on our website, Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we're going to be coming out with more of these educational videos. And share this too with others. We always appreciate that too, okay? So with all that said, we'll see you guys next time, guys.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys.